The alarm system screamed across the orbital defense station, pulling Commander Taman Park from his morning coffee. His fingers flew across the control panel as three massive shapes appeared on the radar screen. They were big, much bigger than any human vessel, and they were heading straight into the Sol system without any warning or permission. Identification. Taman barked at his communications officer. Velcro's Empire ships, sir. Heavy-class warships. The young officer's voice shook slightly. They're not responding to our hails. Taman watched the three alien vessels move past Mars like they owned the place. The Velcros were one of the oldest species in the Galactic Council, reptilian creatures who had been traveling between stars when humans were still learning to make fire. They had made it very clear during humanity's admission to the galactic community that they considered Earth to be nothing special. Keep trying to contact them, Taman ordered, and get me a direct line to Earth Command. Down on Earth, President Daehyun Kwan was in a meeting when his emergency communicator buzzed. He excused himself from the room full of economic advisors and took the call. What he heard made his jaw tighten. 3 Velcros warships, unauthorized entry, no communication, heading toward Jupiter. Have we sent anyone to investigate? Kwan asked. Captain Hannah Choi is already en route with the Perseverance, sir. Kwan nodded even though the caller couldn't see him. Hannah was good, one of their best patrol captains. If anyone could handle first contact with aggressive aliens, it was her. Keep me updated every 15 minutes. Captain Hannah Choi had been running drills with her crew when the orders came through. The Perseverance wasn't a warship, just a patrol vessel designed to check on mining operations and rescue stranded ships. But it was fast, and right now speed was what mattered. All hands to stations, she announced through the ship's intercom. We have unknown vessels in the system. This is not a drill. The journey to Jupiter took hours even at maximum burn. Hannah spent the time reviewing everything humanity knew about the Velcros, which wasn't much. They were strong, proud, and had a military that hadn't lost a real fight in over 1,000 years. They also thought every other species was beneath them. When Europa came into view, Hannah could see the Velcro ships clearly. They had set up mining equipment on the icy moon surface and were already extracting materials. Europa was important to humanity's terraforming projects. Those compounds they were taking had cost human lives to discover and catalog. Open a channel, Hannah ordered. This is Captain Hannah Choi of the United Earth vessel Perseverance. You are conducting unauthorized operations in human territory. Please cease immediately and respond. Nothing. Not even static. The Velcro ships continued their work like the Perseverance didn't exist. Hannah moved her ship closer. I repeat, you are in violation of the nearest Velcro's warship fired. Not at the Perseverance, but across its bow, close enough that Hannah could see the energy weapons on her view screen. It was a warning shot, the kind you gave to something you considered an annoying insect. Captain? Her weapons officer asked, hand hovering over the firing controls. Hannah wanted to return fire. Every instinct screamed at her to teach these reptilian bastards some respect. But she had her orders, and more importantly, she had her crew to think about. The Perseverance had exactly 0 chance against even one of those warships. Fall back, she said quietly. Get us out of weapons range and record everything. The retreat burned, but Hannah knew it was the smart play. This wasn't over. Back on Earth, President Kwan watched the footage of the warning shot 3 times. Beside him stood General Yoona Lee, the head of Earth's military forces, and Intelligence Director Sung-Ho Kim, a thin man with sharp eyes who rarely spoke but always knew more than he said. They fired on our ship, General Lee said flatly. In our own system. That's an act of war. It's a provocation, Sung corrected. They want us to overreact. The Galactic Council would love an excuse to label us as aggressive primitives. Kwan rubbed his temples. What are our options? Militarily? We could probably take those 3 ships if we committed our entire fleet, Lee said. But we'd lose half our vessels doing it, and then we'd have the whole Velcro's empire to deal with. Diplomatically? Kwan asked. Sung-Ho pulled up a holographic display. Ambassador Jiwoo Nam is already preparing to address the Galactic Council. But sir, I need to be honest with you. The Council doesn't care about our complaints. We're the new species, the ones who just got here. They've been running things their way for thousands of years. Quan stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. Seoul had been rebuilt 3 times in human history after devastating wars. Humanity knew how to survive. They also knew how to remember. We do this the right way, he said finally. We go through proper channels. We file the complaint, present our evidence, and demand they leave our system. But generally, I want our fleet ready. If this happens again, I want options. Ambassador Jiwoo Nam stood before the Galactic Council 3 days later. The chamber was enormous, filled with dozens of different species, all older and more established than humanity. She presented the evidence clearly: unauthorized entry, unauthorized mining operations, aggressive action against a human vessel. The council listened with what might have been boredom. When she finished, Krelix, the Velcros ambassador, rose to respond. He was massive, covered in dark green scales, with eyes that looked at Jiwoo like she was something he might step on. The honorable human representative seems confused about territorial rights, Krelix said, his voice deep and amused. Developing species have no claim to uninhabited celestial bodies within their star systems. This has been council law for 3,000 years. Perhaps humans should spend less time complaining and more time learning how things work. Several council members made sounds that might have been laughter. Dogu kept her face neutral. The law you cite specifically exempts bodies that developing species have actively improved or studied. Europa has 17 human research stations. Had Krelix corrected. We needed the space for proper mining operations. Your equipment has been relocated to Ganymede. You're welcome. More laughter. Jiwoo gathered her papers and returned to her seat. She sent a short message back to Earth. They don't respect us. This will get worse. Commander Taemin Park received the intelligence report 2 weeks later. 6 more Velcro ships were heading toward the Sol system. Behind them, ships from 2 other council species were also making plans to visit. He called President Quan directly. Sir, we have a situation developing. Quan listened to the report and felt something cold settle in his chest. This was how it would be then. The great and powerful council would push and push, taking what they wanted, laughing at human protests, until humanity either bent the knee or broke. How much patience do you think we have? Quan asked quietly. Tae-Min was silent for a moment. Sir, I've studied military history my whole life. I've learned that patience is a virtue, but it's not infinite. Eventually, even the most peaceful person draws a line. Yes, Quan agreed. Eventually. He ended the call and stood alone in his office, looking at a map of the solar system. Somewhere out there, more ships were coming, more insults were being prepared, more of humanity's dignity was going to be tested. The question wasn't if humans would respond. The question was when and how hard. 5 months had passed since the first Velcro's incursion, and things had only gotten worse. The pattern was clear now, repeated so many times that it felt like a script being acted out across the solar system. Council species would arrive without warning. They would take what they wanted. Earth would protest. The Galactic Council would dismiss the complaint. Repeat. The Shamara, beings made of living crystal who communicated through light pulses, established a listening post on Mars. They didn't ask permission. They didn't even bother to pretend they had permission. When human administrators on Mars requested they leave, the Shamara simply stopped responding to communications. Their crystalline structures grew larger every day, spreading across Olympus Mons like a glittering infection. The Nethari came next. These beings existed as sentient gas clouds contained within specialized ships. They descended on Saturn and began harvesting from the atmosphere, disrupting 3 human research stations that had been studying the planet's unique properties for years. When the station commanders complained, the Nethari responded that solid-form beings couldn't possibly understand the importance of their work. Dr. Bora Han had been watching all of this from a different perspective. She was a xenanthropologist, one of the few humans granted access to the galactic archives. a massive database located on the neutral station of Kelmer Prime. She had gone there to study alien cultures, hoping to help humanity better understand their new galactic neighbors. What she found instead kept her awake at night. Bora spent 3 months digging through historical records, cross-referencing incidents, comparing patterns. The archives were poorly organized, probably on purpose, but she was patient and thorough. What emerged from the data made her physically sick. This had all happened before. Not just once, but 17 times in the past 3,000 years, a new species would join the Galactic Council. They would be welcomed with ceremony and pretty words. Then the violations would start, small at first, testing boundaries. The Council species would take resources, ignore protests, laugh at complaints. They would push and push until the new species either submitted completely or fought back. The ones who submitted became client states, forever locked into serving the older species, never quite equal, never quite free. The ones who fought back were crushed, their military destroyed, their planets occupied until they learned their place. Bora downloaded everything she could, encrypted it, and sent it back to Earth through the most secure channels she could access. The message she included was simple: we're being set up. This is a trap, and we're walking right into it. Intelligence Director Seung-ho Kim received Bora's data packet at 3 in the morning. He was used to working odd hours, but what he read in her report made him call an emergency meeting immediately. By dawn, he was sitting across from President Kwan, General Lee, and a dozen other high-ranking officials, presenting what Bora had discovered. 17 species, Seung-ho said, displaying the data on a large screen. All of them went through exactly what we're experiencing now. The Council calls it the integration process. They call it other things too in their private communications: domestication, conditioning, breaking. General Lee leaned forward. And the ones who fought back? Crushed, Seung-ho replied. The Council has overwhelming military superiority. Any species that resisted was destroyed economically and militarily. Some of them are still occupied thousands of years later. President Kwan stared at the data for a long time. So our choices are slavery or death. Those are the choices they're offering, Seung-ho agreed. But there's something else, something I think they haven't considered. He brought up another file. While Dr. Han was researching, I had my people doing analysis too. We've been studying every military engagement the Council species have fought in the last 500 years. He pulled up tactical displays, ship movements, battle formations. They haven't evolved. Their tactics are exactly the same as they were centuries ago. They're powerful, yes, but they're also complacent. Lieutenant Jae-Sung Oh, a young tactical analyst who had been silent until now, stood up. Sir, if I may. Kwan nodded. Jae-Sung brought up 3-dimensional models of Velcros, Shimara, and Nathari warships. I've been studying their designs, their movements, everything we've recorded. The Velcro ships are incredibly powerful, but they're slow to maneuver. The Shimara vessels are beautiful and their shields are strong, but their brittle, kinetic impacts could shatter them. The Nathari cloud ships are vulnerable to electromagnetic disruption. You're saying we could fight them? General Lee said slowly. I'm saying they have weaknesses they don't even know about because nobody's challenged them in so long. Bishung replied. They think they're invincible. That's a weakness all by itself. The meeting went on for hours. Plans were made, contingencies discussed. Nothing was decided that day, but seeds were planted. Captain Hannah Choi didn't know about any of this when she received her promotion to admiral. She was called to Earth Command and found herself standing before President Kwan himself. Congratulations, Admiral Choi, Kwan said, shaking her hand. You're now in command of Earth's First Fleet. Hannah blinked. Sir, I'm not sure I'm qualified. You kept your crew alive when the Velcros fired on you, Kwan interrupted. You made the smart choice to retreat when you were outgunned. You showed discipline and judgment. That's what I need right now. He walked her to a window overlooking the military spaceport. Ships were being built, more than Hannah had ever seen in one place. I need you to prepare our people, Kwan said quietly. I hope we'll never need to use them in combat. But if we do, I need to know they're ready. Hannah understood what he wasn't saying. She saluted. Yes, sir. Over the next several weeks, the First Fleet ran drills. To anyone watching, they seemed like standard exercises, but Hannah was drilling her crews on scenarios that seemed impossible. How to fight when outnumbered 10-1. How to use asteroids and planetary bodies for cover. How to coordinate attacks from multiple vectors simultaneously. How to make the enemy underestimate you right up until the moment you struck. Meanwhile, Ambassador Jiwoo Nam was making one final attempt at diplomacy. She requested emergency session of the Galactic Council, citing multiple violations of sovereignty and demanding immediate withdrawal of all unauthorized Council vessels from the Sol system. The chamber was full when she spoke. She presented her case calmly, methodically, listing each violation, each ignored protest, each dismissive response. Krelix interrupted her halfway through. Honorable Ambassador, this council has more important matters to attend to than the hurt feelings of newcomers. Your species is young. You lack perspective. In time, you will understand your place in the galactic order. Our place? Jiwoo asked quietly. Yes, as contributors, as learners, as grateful participants in a civilization that existed long before your world had language. Krelix's tone was patronizing, the way an adult might speak to a stubborn child. We have been tolerant of your complaints. We have been patient with your confusion about how things work. This patience is not unlimited. Wu looked around the chamber. Some council members looked uncomfortable. Most looked bored. None looked like they would help. She gathered her papers and stood. I thank the council for their time, she said formally. Then she walked out of the chamber before they could officially dismiss her. The message she sent to President Kwon was even shorter than her last one. Diplomacy has failed. On the neutral station Kelmore Prime, Dr. Borahan was packing her belongings to return to Earth when she had a visitor. A small, furry creature with 6 limbs and large eyes approached her cautiously. Dr. Han? I am Tikvik, representing the Keshan Collective. We are what the council calls a developing species. Bora stopped packing. What can I do for you? We heard what you found in the archives. Your people are not the only ones being tested. Tikvik's voice was barely a whisper. There are others. Many others. We are all being pushed, all being broken in. Some of us have been talking. We think maybe if we all stood together. The small alien trailed off, looking terrified of even suggesting such a thing. Bora knelt down to Tikvik's eye level. Tell your people to be ready. Tell them to watch Earth. Whatever happens next, pay attention. Back in the Sol system, Commander Taemin Park watched 3 more Velcro ships enter the system. Then 4 Shamara vessels. Then 2 Nathari Cloud Dash ships. They were getting bolder now, arriving in larger groups. They weren't even pretending to respect human sovereignty anymore. Taemin opened a com channel to Earth Command. Sir, they're not stopping. At this rate, we'll have council ships at every major body in the system within a month. President Kwon's response was quiet but firm. I know, let them come. Let them think they've won. Our patience is dwindling, Commander. But it hasn't run out quite yet. But both men knew the truth. The line was close now. Very close. Somewhere in the asteroid belt, Admiral Hana Choi ran one more drill with her fleet. Her crews were ready. The ships were ready. The question was no longer if they would fight. The question was when. President Dae-Hyun Kwon stood before the United Earth Assembly. Every seat was filled. Representatives from every nation, every territory, every human settlement across the solar system had gathered. Behind them, cameras broadcast the session to every human outpost and, through open channels to every species monitoring Earth's communications, Kwon knew the Galactic Council was watching. That was the point. For 7 months, he began, his voice calm but carrying clearly through the chamber. We have shown restraint. We have followed proper procedures. We have respected the rules and systems established by the Galactic Council long before humanity reached for the stars. He paused, letting his words settle. We have filed complaints through official channels. We have requested peaceful resolution. We have demonstrated patience that our ancestors would have found remarkable. We did this because we believed in diplomacy. We believed that reason and law would prevail. Another pause. Longer this time. We were wrong. The assembly was completely silent now. The Galactic Council has dismissed every complaint. They have ignored every protest. They have violated our sovereignty repeatedly and without consequence. They have told us in every way except explicit words that we do not matter, that our rights do not matter, that we are children to be managed, not partners to be respected. Quan's voice hardened. So let me be absolutely clear to our own people and to anyone listening across the galaxy. We have shown restraint. We have sought peace. We have followed your rules. But understand this, our patience is not infinite. It is not unlimited. It is not unconditional. He looked directly at the main camera, knowing that somewhere, Krelix and the other council members were watching. The next violation of our sovereignty will be met with consequences. We will not ask for permission to defend what is ours. We will not file another complaint that will be dismissed. We will act. This is not a threat. This is a statement of fact. Our patience is dwindling. Do not test what little remains. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, species watched and wondered what the young humans would actually do on the Velcro's homeworld. Krelix watched the broadcast and laughed. Adorable, he said to his subordinates. The children think they have teeth. 3 days later, a Velcro's mining Fleet 12 ships strong entered the asteroid belt. They moved through the commercial shipping lanes that human vessels use daily, scattering cargo ships like they were debris. 2 human freighters were intercepted, their crews taken prisoner. Their ships claimed under ancient salvage laws that humanity had never agreed to. General Unili received the report and immediately contacted President Quan. Sir, they're testing us. This is deliberate. They want to see if we were serious. Quan looked at the tactical display showing the captured ships, the imprisoned crews. He thought about all the meetings, all the discussions, all the warnings that had been ignored. Give Admiral Choi authorization to respond. Full discretion on tactics. But General, I want those human crews back alive, and I don't want this to escalate into a system-wide war. Not yet, Lee smiled slightly. Understood, sir. Admiral Hannah Choi had been waiting for this order. Her fleet was already in position, scattered throughout the asteroid belt in a pattern that would look random to anyone not understanding what they were seeing. All ships. This is Admiral Choi. Operation Clean Sweep is now active. Remember your training. Speed, precision, and discipline. We're not here to start a war. We're here to end an insult. The First Fleet moved, the Velcro's fleet commander, a veteran named Threxus who had been mining asteroids for 2 centuries. First noticed something was wrong when his sensor officer reported multiple fast-moving objects approaching from different vectors. Human ships, the officer reported. 17 vessels closing at high speed. Threxus snorted. Prepare weapons. Let's teach these primitives what happens when they challenge their betters. But the human ships didn't attack head-on. They swarmed, each vessel targeting a different Velcro ship, using the asteroids for cover, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted effectively. It was chaos, but controlled chaos, every movement part of a larger pattern. Hannah's ship, the Indomitable, came in fast on the fleet's flagship. Target their engine systems only. I want them disabled, not destroyed. Her weapons officer nodded. Firing. Precision strikes hit the Velcro's flagship's engines. Without main power, the massive ship went dark, drifting. Around it, the same scene played out 11 more times. The Velcros tried to return fire, but they were too slow. Their weapons designed for massive fleet battles against opponents. Who fought the way they fought? Humans didn't fight that way. In 17 minutes, it was over. 12 Velcro ships drifted powerless. Not a single human or Velcro's life had been lost. The captured human crews were recovered within the first 5 minutes of the Operation Hannah opened a channel to the Velcro's fleet commander. Commander Threxus, this is Admiral Hannah Choi of Earth's First Fleet. Your ships have been disabled but not destroyed. Your crews are unharmed. You have 12 hours to evacuate all personnel to your lifeboats. After that, we will destroy these vessels. You are ordered to leave our system immediately and never return. If you do return, we will not be this merciful. She cut the transmission without waiting for a response. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session within hours. The chamber was in uproar. Multiple species were shouting at once, demanding explanations. Calling for immediate action, Krelix stood, and the chamber quieted. A member species has been attacked by these humans. This cannot stand. We must respond with overwhelming force. We must show every developing species what happens when they dare to raise a hand against their betters. Ambassador Jiwoo Nam rose to speak. A council species violated human sovereignty for the 18th time. They fired on civilian vessels. They imprisoned human citizens without cause. We defended ourselves using minimal force. No one died. We gave them time to evacuate safely. By any measure of galactic law that applies equally to all species, our actions were justified. You have no right to act without council approval. Krelix roared. Jiwoo's response was quiet but carried through the entire chamber. No, the single word seemed to echo. The council had expected apologies, explanations, maybe defiance, but with room for negotiation. They got simple refusal. No, Jiwoo repeated. We are a sovereign species. We do not need your permission to defend our territory, our citizens, or our dignity. You have dismissed our complaints, ignored our protests, and violated our space repeatedly. You have been warned. That warning was not a request for guidance. It was a statement of fact. Our patience has limits, and you have found them. She gathered her materials and walked out of the chamber for the second time. This time she didn't plan to come back. While the council argued and shouted, Intelligence Director Sung-Ho Kim was implementing Operation Silent Thunder. He had agents positioned throughout the galaxy, most of them human diplomats, researchers, or traders who had quietly made contacts with other developing species. One of his best operatives was Meking SEO, a cultural liaison officer stationed on a trade hub called Nexus Station. She had spent months building relationships with representatives from dozens of species, all of them in similar situations to humanity. Now she activated those relationships. The humans stood up to the council, she told a nervous Keshan diplomat. And they won. Their ships are still intact, their people are safe, and the Velcro's fleet fled the system. The news spread like fire through dry grass. Species that had been bullied for years, decades, even centuries suddenly saw an example of resistance that succeeded. Quiet meetings began happening in dark corners of stations across the galaxy. Messages were sent through encrypted channels. Networks formed. Back in the Sol system, something unexpected happened. The Shimara contacted Earth directly, bypassing the Council completely. Their message was brief. We are withdrawing our presence from Mars. We apologize for the intrusion. The Nithari followed the next day, pulling their cloud ships back from Saturn without explanation, but the Velcros, proud and ancient, could not accept the humiliation. Krelix addressed the council again, his voice shaking with rage. The Velcro's empire demands immediate military action against Earth. They have attacked our ships. They have humiliated our people. This insult cannot stand. The council voted. It was close, but the ancient traditions of member solidarity held. A joint fleet would be assembled. Earth would be taught its place. Dr. Borahan, still on Kalmar Prime, managed to get a warning through to Earth. They're coming. 120 ships. Velcros, Shimara, Nithari. They're calling it a police action. You have maybe 3 weeks. President Kwan received the message in his office late at night. He stood at the window, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the largest military force humanity had ever faced was preparing to crush them. He activated his communicator. General Lee, recall all our ships to the Sol system. Admiral Choi, I need a defensive plan. Commander Park, shore up every orbital platform we have. Director Kim, I need to know which species might actually help us if this goes bad. Responses came back quickly. Everyone had been preparing for this possibility. Kwan's final message went to all Earth forces, they're coming to make us kneel. We're going to show them that humans don't kneel. Not for anyone. Not ever. On Nexus Station, Mike Young SCO sent out one more message to her network of developing species. Watch what happens next. Watch carefully. The galaxy is about to change. In the asteroid belt, Admiral Hannah Choi assembled her command staff. Lieutenant Jae-Sung Oh spread out tactical projections showing the incoming Council fleet. We're outnumbered 10-1, someone said quietly. Hannah looked at each of her officers. Yes, but we have something they don't. We're fighting for our home. We're fighting for our freedom. And we're fighting for every species in the galaxy that's been pushed around by these ancient bastards who think age equals righteousness. She activated the fleet-wide comm. All ships, this is Admiral Choi. The Council is sending their fleet to punish us for daring to defend ourselves. They expect us to surrender or be destroyed. They're wrong on both counts. We're going to defend our home. We're going to protect our people. And we're going to teach the galaxy that humanity's patience may be limited, but our courage is not. Across the fleet, crews prepared for battle. The storm was coming. The Council fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system exactly 3 weeks after the Battle of the Asteroid Belt, 120 warships, representing 3 different species, all united in their determination to teach humanity a lesson about challenging ancient authority. Their commander was a Velcro's admiral named Corthan, a military leader who had commanded fleets for 300 years without experiencing a single defeat. He looked at the tactical display showing the Sol system and felt nothing but contempt. Open a channel to Earth, he ordered, on Earth. President Dae-Hyun Kwan stood in the command center surrounded by General Yoona Lee, Intelligence Director Sung-Ho Kim, and dozens of other officials. The massive view screen showed the Council fleet. An overwhelming wall of military power. Horthan's reptilian face filled the screen. Humans of Earth, you have violated the peace of the Galactic Council. You have attacked member species. You have rejected lawful authority. This cannot be tolerated. You have one option. Surrender your military to Council oversight, submit to occupation, and accept Council governance. You have 6 hours to comply. If you refuse, we will use whatever force is necessary to restore order. The transmission ended. General Lee turned to President Kwan. 6 hours. What are your orders, sir? Kwan looked around the room at all the faces watching him. These were humanity's best, its brightest, its most dedicated. They had worked for months preparing for this moment, hoping it would never come but ready if it did. Send the response, Kwan said quietly. The reply that went back to Admiral Corthan was simple and unsigned. A single word, no. Across the Sol system, human forces moved into position. Admiral Hannah Choi commanded the First Fleet from the bridge of the Indomitable position near Neptune's orbit. She had 17 combat vessels under her direct command, with another 35 scattered throughout the system in carefully planned positions. They outnumber us 3-1 just counting our total ships, her tactical officer noted. Ship for ship, they outgun us even worse. Which is why we're not going to fight ship to ship, Hannah replied. She pulled up the tactical plan that Lieutenant Jae-Sung Oh had spent weeks perfecting. We're going to make them chase us through our home. Every planet, every moon, every asteroid field. We know this system. They don't. We're fast and we can adapt. They're powerful but predictable. Commander Taemin Park watched the Council fleet from his orbital defense station above Earth. He had 42 platforms under his command, each one bristling with weapons that human engineers had designed specifically for this kind of fight. All platforms. Hold position until they enter effective range, he ordered. Remember, we get one good shot before they adjust. Make it count. The Council fleet moved into the system in a traditional formation that hadn't changed in 1,000 years. Admiral Corthan was confident, almost bored. He had fought rebellious species before. They always folded once they saw real military power. The first indication that this would be different came near. Neptune, 3 council ships, 2 Shamara, and 1. Velcros detected what appeared to be a small human patrol. They moved to intercept, weapons ready for an easy victory. Instead, they flew into a carefully prepared ambush. Human ships appeared from behind Neptune's moons, firing coordinated strikes that targeted each ship's specific weaknesses, the Shamara vessels. Beautiful crystalline structures that had survived hundreds of battles shattered under kinetic bombardment. The impact sent cracks racing through their lattice structures, and both ships broke apart like glass sculptures hit with hammers. The Velcro ship tried to return fire, but the human vessels were already gone. Using Neptune's gravity to slingshot toward their next position, Admiral Corthan stared at the tactical display. How did they destroy 2 Shamara ships that quickly? His tactical officer reviewed the data. Sir, they used simple kinetic weapons. Mass accelerated to extreme velocity. The Shamara shields are designed to disperse energy weapons, but solid projectiles at that speed just punched right through. 3 ships, Corthan said dismissively. A lucky strike. Continue the advance? But it kept happening. Near Saturn, a group of Nethari cloud ships ran into an electromagnetic field that human ships had seeded across their approach vector. The field disrupted the energy containment that held the Nethari's gaseous forms together. They didn't die, but they scattered, their ships effectively disabled while they slowly reformed. At Jupiter, 5 Velcro's heavy cruisers found themselves boxed in by human ships using the planet's radiation belt as cover. The humans struck from multiple angles, never staying in one place, never fighting the kind of sustained battle the Velcros were designed for. Admiral Hannah Troy watched the battle reports flowing in. Her ships were taking damage, but they were giving much worse than they got. Stay mobile. Don't give them time to use their superior firepower. Hit and run, just like we practiced. On Earth, General Lee coordinated the planetary defense. Millions of civilians had been evacuated to underground shelters, massive structures built during humanity's own violent past. Now those old fears were proving useful. If they make it past the fleet, if they reach Earth itself, Lee briefed her commanders, we make them pay for every meter. We've prepared for this. We know how to defend our home. But it was Mikyung SEO's operation that changed everything across the galaxy. In 37 different systems, developing species launched simultaneous strikes against Council assets. They weren't full rebellions, not yet. They were carefully targeted operations, hitting supply depots, communication relays, and minor military outposts. None of the strikes were devastating by themselves, but together they created chaos. The Council had to divert forces, had to respond, had to suddenly worry about fires burning across their territory instead of focusing everything on Earth. Admiral Corthan received the reports and felt the first stirrings of doubt. How many species are involved in these attacks? 37 confirmed, sir. Maybe more. They're all developing species, all ones that the Council has integrated over the past few centuries. Corthan pulled up a tactical map showing the incidents scattered across Council space. It looked like a coordinated uprising. How had the humans organized this? How had they even communicated with all these species? He refocused on the Sol system. 6 days of fighting, and he had lost 43 ships. 43. The humans had lost only 12. This was impossible. The Council fleet was superior in every measurable way. But measurable superiority didn't seem to matter. When the enemy refused to fight the way you expected, the tide of battle shifted near. Mars, a major push by Velcro's heavy ships, supported by Shamara and Nethari vessels, tried to break through to Earth. Commander Taemin Park's orbital platforms opened fire. Coordinating with Admiral Troy's fleet in a devastating crossfire, the battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, 8 Council ships were destroyed and 15 more were crippled. The human losses were 3 ships destroyed and 7 damaged. That night, Admiral Corthan sent a message to the Galactic Council. The humans are not fighting like a developing species. Their tactics are unlike anything we have faced. They are using our own predictability against us. Recommend immediate reinforcements. The Council's response came back within hours. Reinforcements are unavailable. Widespread unrest requires fleet presence across multiple systems. Complete your mission with existing forces. Corthan stared at that message for a long time. For the first time in 3 centuries, he considered the possibility of defeat. On the 9th day of battle, something remarkable happened. A small diplomatic vessel entered the Sol system under a flag of truce. It was Shamara. The message they sent went directly to President Quan. We wish to withdraw from this action. The Shamara Collective does not wish to fight species defending their rightful territory. We apologize for our participation. 3 Shamara ships broke formation and left the system. The next day, the Nethari followed them, that left only the Velcros. Proud and stubborn, still committed to crushing human resistance. But they had lost the numbers advantage. Admiral Corthan now commanded 62 ships against Earth's remaining 40-3. Admiral Hannah Choi saw the opportunity. All ships converge on the Velcros fleet. No more hit and run. We end this now. The final battle took place in the space between Mars and Earth. Both fleets committed everything they had. The fighting was brutal, desperate, and close quarters. Lieutenant Jae-Sung serving aboard the Indomitable as tactical coordinator, called out targets and coordinated fleet movements with a precision that came from months of study and preparation. Every weakness the Velcros had, the humans exploited. Every predictable tactical decision, the humans anticipated. Commander Taemin Park's orbital platforms provided covering fire. Their weapons perfectly calibrated for this kind of engagement. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Velcros fleet was broken. 19 ships destroyed, 28 crippled and drifting, 15 retreating at maximum speed toward the edge of the system. The human fleet had lost 9 ships, with another 16 damaged but functional. Admiral Hannah Choi watched the retreating Velcros vessels and received urgent requests from multiple subordinates to pursue and destroy them. Negative, she said firmly. Let them go. Let them tell the Council what happened here. Let them tell everyone that humans can be pushed. But we cannot be broken. Admiral Corthan, his flagship damaged and his fleet destroyed, sent one final transmission toward Earth. You have won this battle, humans. But you have made enemies of forces you cannot imagine. This is not over. President Kwan's response was broadcast across all frequencies, meant for the retreating Velcros but also for every species in the galaxy that might be listening. We gave you warning. We told you our patience was limited. You chose not to listen. Remember this defeat, Admiral. Remember that even ancient powers must show respect, or they will learn it through pain. The Battle of Sol was over. Earth had defended itself against the most powerful military coalition in the known galaxy. As Quan stood looking at the casualty, REPORTS to 3,847 humans dead, 12 ships destroyed, thousands wounded, he knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy would never see humanity the same way again, and more importantly, every species that had been pushed around by the Council now knew that resistance was possible. The silence that followed the battle was loud with possibility. The Galactic Council chamber had never been this chaotic. Species that had sat together in comfortable superiority for millennia were now shouting at each other, demanding answers, pointing fingers, and watching their ancient authority crumble in real time. The defeat at Sol was bad enough. What came after was worse. 17 developing species had formally declared independence from Council oversight. 23 more were demanding equal representation and voting rights. 5 species that had been client states for over 1,000 years were refusing to pay their tribute. The carefully constructed hierarchy that had maintained galactic peace through overwhelming power and the threat of force was falling apart. Ambassador Ji Woo Nam watched it all from the observation gallery, no longer a participant but a witness. She had returned to the Council chambers not to plead or argue, But to watch the old order destroy itself below, Krelix was trying to maintain control. Order! We must have order! The Council cannot function with this chaos. A small mammalian representative from a species called the Torvik stood up. The Council functioned by keeping us afraid, by making us believe we had no choice but to submit. Earth showed us the truth. We do have choices. We can stand up. We can say no. More voices joined in. The chamber descended into arguments again. Dr. Borahan stood beside Jiwoo in the gallery. How long do you think the Council has? She asked quietly. In its current form? Maybe a year, Iwoo replied. They'll try to hold on to power, but the old ways are dead. They just don't know it yet. Bora pulled out a datapad showing a document she had been working on for weeks. I've drafted something. I'm calling it the Covenant of Sovereign Rights. Basic principles: all spacefaring species have equal status. Territorial sovereignty must be respected. The use of force requires legitimate justification and proportional response. Iwoo read through it carefully. This is good. This is really good. But the Council will never accept it. The Council won't, Bora agreed. But 39 developing species have already indicated they would. We don't need the Council's permission to create something new. On Earth, President Daehyun Kwan stood before a memorial wall in Seoul, looking at the names of those who had died defending the Sol system. 3,847 names, each one a person who would never go home, never see their families again, never live the peaceful lives they deserved. General Yuna Lee stood beside him. They're calling you across the galaxy, sir? The president who defeated the Council. The leader who stood up to ancient powers. They died because I chose to fight, Kwan said quietly. Every one of these names is on my conscience. They died free, Lee replied. Not on their knees. Not as slaves. They died defending their home and their dignity. That matters. Kwan nodded slowly. What's our status? The fleet is being rebuilt. Admiral Choi estimates we'll be at full strength in 6 months. Commander Park's orbital platforms are operational. We're as secure as we can be? And the political situation? You need to see this yourself, sir. Lee pulled up a holographic display showing dozens of messages, all from different species. We're being contacted by species from across the galaxy. Some want military alliances. Some want trade agreements. Some just want to know how we did it. Kwan looked at the sheer volume of communication. We're not conquerors. We're not trying to build an empire. I know, sir. But the galaxy sees us as the species that said no and survived. That means something to a lot of people who have been saying yes for a very long time. Admiral Hannah Choi was offered the position 3 times before she finally accepted. Supreme. Allied commander of what was being called the Coalition of Free World's 39 species who had united under principles of mutual defense and sovereign equality, she stood on the bridge of a new flagship, the Endurance, looking out at a fleet that represented dozens of different species and ship designs. It was chaotic, messy, and completely unlike the rigid formations the Council used. It was also beautiful. Her chief of staff, now promoted to captain, came from the Keshan species. His name was Tikvik, the same small furry being who had first approached Dr. Borahan months ago. Admiral, we have reports from the border sectors. Council forces are withdrawing from contested territories. They're consolidating their positions. Smart, Hannah said. They know they can't fight wars on multiple fronts. They'll try to hold what they can and wait for us to fall apart. Will we? Tikvik asked. Fall apart, I mean. We're so many different species, different cultures, different goals. Hannah smiled. That's what the Council thinks. They assume that because we're different, we'll fight each other. They don't understand that diversity can be a strength. We have different perspectives, different approaches, different solutions to problems. As long as we respect each other's sovereignty, we'll be stronger together than any of us could be alone. On Mars, General Lee and Lieutenant Jae-Sung-oh were overseeing the establishment of the Galactic Tactical Academy. The facility would train military officers from coalition species. sharing human tactical knowledge and learning from the combat. Experience of other worlds. Jae-sung watched the first-class arrive beings of all shapes, sizes, and biological types, all eager to learn. General, do you think we're doing the right thing? Teaching warfare to so many species? Lee considered the question carefully. We're teaching defense. We're teaching how to protect your home and your people. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and the Council's collapse is going to make it more dangerous for a while. These species deserve the ability to protect themselves. And if they use what we teach them for aggression, then we'll deal with that if it happens, Lee replied. But I'd rather live in a galaxy where species can defend themselves than one where they have to submit to bullies. Intelligence. Director Sung-ho Kim and Operative Mi-kyung Seo had transitioned from running covert operations to establishing the Coalition Intelligence Network. They worked with security services from dozens of species, sharing information about threats, smuggling, and the occasional Council attempt at sabotage. Mi-kyung sat in a meeting with intelligence representatives from 12 different species, coordinating responses to a piracy problem in the outer sectors. 2 years ago, she would never have imagined being in a room like this, working as equals with beings from across the galaxy. The Velcros are funding these pirates, a Torvik intelligence officer said. We've traced the money. They're trying to destabilize coalition trade routes. Can we prove it? Mi-kyung asked. Not in a way that would hold up in an independent tribunal. But we know. Then we handle it quietly, Sung-ho said from his position at the head of the table. We track the funding, we intercept it, and we make it too expensive for the Velcros to continue. But we do it clean. We're not the Council. We don't operate without evidence and accountability. The meeting continued, working through problems with the kind of cooperation that would have been impossible under the old Council system. The Velcros Empire, meanwhile, had withdrawn into isolation. The defeat at Seoul, combined with the humiliation of watching their client species abandon them, had shaken them deeply. Krelix had been removed from his position as ambassador. Admiral Corthan had been forced into retirement. The new Velcros leadership was younger, less certain of their ancient superiority. They watched the coalition grow and wondered if perhaps the old ways had been wrong all along. The Shimara and the Thari, more pragmatic than the Velcros, approached Earth directly seeking peace treaties. They acknowledged their violations of human sovereignty and offered reparations. President Kwon accepted, setting terms that were firm but fair. We don't want revenge, he told the Shimara delegation. We want respect. We want recognition that all species deserve sovereignty and dignity. Give us that, and we can build something better than what came before. The treaties were signed within months. Dr. Borahan's Covenant of Sovereign Rights was formally adopted by the coalition. It wasn't perfect, different species interpreted some clauses differently, but it provided a framework for cooperation. Built on respect rather than fear, was offered the position of coalition historian, tasked with documenting what was happening and ensuring future generations understood how the galaxy had changed. We're watching the birth of a new galactic order, she wrote in her first official report. Not one built on the domination of the old over the young, the strong over the weak, but one built on mutual respect, sovereign equality, and the understanding that diversity makes us stronger. President Dae Hyun-kan, nearing the end of his term, gave one final major address to the galaxy. He spoke from the memorial in Seoul, surrounded by the names of those who had died defending Earth's freedom. We did not want this war, he said. We gave warning after warning. We asked for peace, for respect, for simple recognition of our right to exist as equals. When those warnings were ignored, when our patience was exhausted, we defended ourselves. He paused, looking at the names carved into the wall. But we did not fight just for ourselves. We fought for every species that had been pushed down, dismissed, told they didn't matter. We fought for the principle that power without accountability becomes tyranny. And tyranny, no matter how ancient or mighty, will always eventually fall to those who refuse to bow. His voice strengthened. The galaxy we see today is not perfect. It is messy and complicated and sometimes difficult. But it is better than what came before. It is a galaxy where species have choices, where sovereignty means something, where saying no is not a crime but a right. Earth's warning was silent for too long. When we finally spoke, we spoke with clarity and conviction. We told the galaxy that our patience had limits, that we would not submit, that we would not kneel. And the galaxy heard us. Admiral Hannah Choi stood on the observation deck of the Endurance, watching the Coalition fleet conduct joint exercises. Ships from 40 different species, all working together, all committed to defending each other's sovereignty. A young Shamar officer approached her, one of the first of her species to attend the Tactical Academy. Admiral Choi, may I ask you something? Of course. How did humanity find the courage to stand up to the Council when you were so outmatched? Hannah thought about the question for a long moment, looking out at the fleet, thinking about all those who had fought and died to make this moment possible. We learned something on our own world, through our own painful history, she said finally. We learned that freedom is never given, it's always taken. We learned that those with power will never voluntarily give it up. We learned that sometimes, even when the odds are impossible, you have to stand up and say no. Because living free, even for a short time, is better than living on your knees forever. The Shamara officer absorbed this thoughtfully. And the Council? What happens to them? They'll adapt or they'll fade, Hannah replied. The galaxy has moved on. The old ways are dead. What comes next, we'll all build together. She looked out at the stars, at the vast galaxy full of possibility and challenge. Earth's patience had been tested. Earth's warning had been delivered. And the galaxy would never be the same. Somewhere out there, on 1,000 different worlds, beings looked up at the stars and knew that they too could say no. They too could stand up. They too could demand respect. Earth's silence had ended. Its voice would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. And that voice said simply, we are free, we will remain free, and we will help all those who seek freedom. That was Earth's final warning. Not a threat, but a promise. The galaxy had heard it. The galaxy had listened, and the galaxy had changed.